2025 was regarded by most people as actually a pretty tame year. In the past few years, I think we've had a lot of seasons where top hits would just be at the forefront of anime watchers, whereas this year, there were more individual new animes, which caused many to not watch anime this year. Honestly, it was the same for me. However, let's also not forget that despite the amount of mediocre shows this year, there are also just a lot of good shows this year. And rather than look at just the okayness of this year, let's not forget the other stuff that happened this year. Tariffs splurged the world into a bit of chaos, the gaming industry and its companies went downhill, and most importantly, we had arguably the biggest anime channel getting cancelled and an apology letter within literally 2 weeks of another. And honestly, this is still a pretty good year. And so I present to you the anime year of 2025. A few honorable mentions before we actually dive in because I had to cut a lot out of my list and narrow it down. Spy X Family, Dalmachi, and Demon Slayer are all continuations that did get at what they do best, but all of them are pretty much sequels that didn't add anything else to its category. Demon Hunter, no, not that one, was a legitimate story, and while the animation wasn't defining, it was still interesting to see where the story was going. While I had slices of Demon Slayer pretty much within the first episode, I think the premise was just different enough to make it onto the list, and I like how it tackles not just guilt, but also what it might mean to stay as a demon, as we haven't seen that perspective in a bit. Summer Pockets was probably one of the best romance animes to come out this year, giving us not only a Maeda story again, with 4 different waifus, but also roots, and while the last arc was a bit sad, the feels didn't hit as hard as I thought they would. Although it was a good show overall. The last one, to a bit of my surprise, was Dad is a Hero, Mom is a Spirit, and I'm a Reincarnator. If you believe that this show was going to almost make it on the list, I would have been surprised too. This show is more similar to Spy X Family than it is an isekai, and I just liked how the main 3 really work together as a whole, and also that the main character isn't even overpowered. Alright, let's get on with the list. Windbreaker Season 2 was something that I did not expect to like. All I heard was that it had similar things to Tokyo Revengers, but it wasn't a time travel anime, and literally just a beat them up show. However, I think I can say that this show was more than just that. Sakura's development this season was, I think, something that was more better received than I thought it would be, considering I don't respectively like a lot of loud anime characters who only just fight. But his backstory and his respect was something that he really needed. He knows when to acknowledge other people's strengths, which in turn makes him stronger, and while it's a bit tropey, that's what I like to see in development when it comes to this show. I also really liked the arc with Tsubakino. Not only did it serve to give a bit of world building outside of schools and also led to more of Sakura's development, his story was, I think, something that we don't see often too much in anime. I think we've had a lot of LGBTQ shows, but never really a show about gender or gender change, and I really respect the author for showing a very realistic thing that somebody can go through. I've had friends who have had these situations, and its execution was just something that I feel like I could relate for others. With the action being as good as Season 1, if not better, what's more not to like? Ah, it's good to be back with this one. Bunny Girl Senpai has had so many movies to the point that I think the general hype in the series got lost somewhere in between. Well, not me. Not only did they deliver it with more stories of mystery and charismatic jokes, but we get to see them grown up from high school students that we once saw them. They have clearly matured, and while the stories are more or less the same, a lot of these worries and concerns that the characters have fit this grown up aspect. It feels like you have grown with these characters, and I just can't believe that there's only going to be one more movie before this entire series ends. The story also feels a little bit more cohesive, being that characters now have 3 to 4 episodes to actually flesh out their character, and that the last arc actually connects to everything you learn about other characters, rather than its sole emphasis on individual arcs, and I think just for that, we can all be grateful that this series has come back as an actual season, rather than just a movie. The first show that isn't a sequel. I don't want to just say that this is Bocchi the Rock Isekai edition, because I think that this comparison is just getting tiring these days. I think that it's true that Monica is the star of the show. She gets nervous and the whole gimmick is that she is. However, I think her development as a character and also the world building is what really let me put this series here. Monica isn't going to change her ways necessarily because of just one or two people, but she wants to live up to expectations that she wants to have of herself. Her backstory just shows how much she does, but also doesn't like about herself, and she tries to get over these hurdles. However, it's hard to say that she wasn't what carried the show, as she gave me a ton of laughs while watching. It's not to say that she is the only one though. The side characters are pretty good, and world building is solid, being the amount of things that can happen within the fantasy world, and opens up to what we might expect in the future, if there is a season 2. Hopefully that's the case, but damn, Monica's built different. Seeing the animation just feels like a love letter to what animation is. I don't think I've ever seen this fluid of animation, and it's so faithful to the manga itself. It's a spiritual successor to Nichijou, and this might be the closest we will ever get to that again. Its jokes, while not as funny, are still enjoyable to watch. There are even more characters that we see the lives of, including the Animal Kingdom, which was something I wasn't expecting. I've really missed this type of style for slice of life shows, and it's just a really comfy show overall. It really just feels like a passion project, and to that, thank you Kyoto Animation for just making this show, and for also making them like 4 to 5 minutes longer per episode. Now this one, I think people are going to think is controversial. Takopi was amazing for its dark story, and is not afraid to tell you about it. Within just 6 episodes, you are given 3 different arcs, each of them tackling a side of life that, well, is honestly pretty real. It tackles a lot of difficult topics, and by the end of the story, it became cohesive and an understanding of what it meant to go through what life is. It's deep, it's entrancing, and makes you ponder on a lot of yourself. However, I'm putting it this low, not because of just preference, but I also believe that while Takopi was a realistic depiction of what a bright side is, I just didn't really like the overemphasis of it, and how it felt a bit annoying to deal with, or felt as if the story was getting intruded by Takopi. I also had the expectation of it being an amazing show, by everyone who I knew, so I had extreme expectations for the show. However, this show is something that I think a lot of people might resonate with. And while it is not my anime of the year, it's still a really good show about tackling your pain and making it into something extraordinary. Now let me say this. I initially thought that season 1 was just okay. But watching season 2, I don't really know why I didn't like season 1 that much. It's both a slice of life and also a mystery show. What's there not to like about it? Take everything you knew about season 1 and find every place for it to improve, and it was there. We got to see some impressive world building this season, being that we finally got to see what was outside the main area. It really became a mystery anime when half of the show involved what was Jinchi's identity and who was Lolan in the first place. It came with pretty big reveals, and it just expands the story more than what we already knew in season 1. The Mao Mao times Jinchi stocks were at an all-time high this season 2, and while it was short, we also got to see some decent animation. It's fun, amazing, and just something that I feel stepped up its game through its world building, and for that, I really like season 2 for what it was worth. This also just feels like City of the animation. It's been 7 years since the first season of Grand Blue, and to be honest, I didn't know how I would deal with the humor because it's been 7 years. Turns out, it's still pretty funny. Grand Blue Season 2 was the comedy anime I feel like I've been missing for the past several years, and was my go-to whenever I needed a laugh for Season 1, and they executed it every single time. There are also some nice tender moments, and I wish that there were more anime that were like this. Despite its funny moments, it also has its serious moments, and I think that makes it something pretty valuable to have. But there really isn't much to say similar to City the Animation, being that I just really missed this show once I watched this, and for that, this might be one of the first legitimate horror anime that I've ever watched, and I think this just sets it apart from everything else within the genre from what I've heard. The summer Hikaru died was something that I didn't expect, and generally gave me chills when I watched it. When you're questioning whether something is real or something is fake, it can become so creepy and scary that you don't even know what you're watching. For example, the episode where that one monster was calling out Yoshiki in the classroom got me freaking scared, man. I also like the mystery aspect of it and piecing the puzzle together. The question of whether it's possible for Hikaru to live in the first place, and it really encapsulates the standard of what a horror story should be. Its soundtrack was one of the most distinct soundtracks this year, and I just can't wait until season 2 for this series comes along. This is by far my biggest surprise of the year. From the creators of Eurocamp, you take that cover vibe that you get from Eurocamp and put it into something like photography, and what do you get? The same comfy vibe, only dumber and way more stupid. Despite having not watched Eurocamp, this series was something that I had not expected out of the slice of life genre. It not only took photography seriously, and actually looked amazing with the show, but they also got to explore the vibes of Japan, and I think that's why I prefer this show to the other slice of life show that season, Food for the Soul. I thought that the characters were way funnier, and I think I have to thank the voice actors for it. Not only did they have a wide range of voicing, but they also made it way funnier, more intriguing, and sound way more relaxed when there was a super comfy scene. The way that this show took on photography made me care about photography more than I ever have with an interest of a hobby, or at least taking better photos of people or places. If an anime is able to change a habit that I've had for a long time, I think this anime is going to be my take for the best pure slice of life show this entire year. Jump into the night, cause now in trouble. Don't you miss the fight, just get out the door. This year was the year of heroes, and one being good, and the second coming from the creator of Link Click and from the Chinese industry. My Hero Academia and To Be Hero X are part of the same genre, yet executed very differently. My Hero Academia has not been in its better days, but ever since season 6, there's just been pure hype into every event that occurs. To Be Hero X mixes in the mystery and the dark side of hero agencies and takes it to a whole new level. But again, on a fundamental level, these are just hero shows. They have different executions, yet both of them are amazing series. My Hero Academia's hype isn't just something that was from season 2. It far surpassed those expectations that I once had 7 years ago. Deku's final scene, the return of some characters, All Might and All for One story, Homero's story, all of these were so beautifully conveyed and was maybe the best animation we have ever seen from the series. I don't care about what people believe of the ending either, because every series has to end someday. But I think My Hero Academia is something that I will always respect, and that this is a series that I will miss dearly. But with this ending, To Be Hero X has essentially filled that gap for me. I fell in love with almost all the characters, and being a story that connects every little thing, it's amazing how the story is without even any source material to reference. Sure, other characters might have had more story, but they are all still connected with one another in some shape or form. There wasn't an episode that I wasn't excited for, and when the final episode came, I wanted more. I can't wait to see what happens for the future of To Be Hero X, because the story is not done yet. Both of these hero shows were some of the best animation we had seen and best storytelling that I've seen this entire year. And it's undeniable that this year was one of the best years for instilling just pure hype and aura as these two did. Ever since I've come by with the series, it amazes me every single time how breathtaking the story is. From little moments among side characters to the dynamic duo between the main couple, nothing in this show just feels wasted. If you haven't seen it, I've covered this anime before in my last video, stating how this would not only change how many people would see the romance genre, but how expectations going forward might change, and while the latter didn't really happen, I did get to see that the romance genre has seen a new romance anime finally take into the mainstream attention. Fragrant Flowers Blooms with Dignity story is not just one of pure hopefulness and warmth, but also one that isn't afraid to tackle loneliness and doubt within oneself. Development feels true to every single character in this show. For example, my favorite episode in this entire season wasn't even the last two episodes, but rather the portrayal of episode 9 and Rintara's mother. This was the scene in the manga that I wanted to see made, and it was absolutely perfect. This is the scene in the manga and now anime that not only changed the way that I viewed my parents, friends, and others, but also how others in the anime community might have too. We get to see the perspective of what parents might feel like in a situation where they might feel hopeless and not confident in their actions, and it really takes different points of view into account here. The mother might generally be one of my favorite characters in the series alone for just that episode, and it's the kind of support that I feel like anime just never really takes with parents, as they're typically non-existent with the anime. Again, it feels as if no amount of content is wasted here. As much as you can call it a Romeo x Juliet story or an apologetic story, these conversations and characters feel real, with the amount of doubts and portrayals they have in every episode. The art is beautiful with almost movie level budget, and its simple soundtrack is soft but memorable. And the fact is that this story is only going to get better from here. There's enough content for more than 2 seasons, and it just feels like we are only starting to dive into the series with its last episode. The series has to come back, and I'm praying for the day where I see that next. That was my list for the 2025 year. While we may not have had that many heavy hitters, it feels like this year for anime gave us time to not only catch up on maybe past anime years, but also it gave us quite a lot of solid shows this year, rather than a mix of heavy hitters and trash bins. It's amazing how far anime has come for the past couple of years, and we all have 2026 to look forward to. Hopefully I'm not just making videos like once a year. We'll see how things go. Thanks everyone, and I'll see y'all next time.